I recently exchanged some messages with a couple of my viewers. They have large families and their wives apparently demand SUVs, or so they say. So I replied that they should perhaps consider minivans, which are much more practical, preferably the ones with sliding doors. But no, they replied, the wives want SUVs. So I said perhaps the wife should try and install a couple of kids in the third row in an SUV. Then she will want a minivan. No, the missus wants an SUV because it's trendy, they say. I think it's the husbands who want SUVs and they just blame it on the wives.
In that case, this is it. Infiniti QX60. Proof that SUVs designed with America in mind are brilliant family cars but don't really work in Europe. And you probably can't even buy one unless you come to Poland. You have time until the end of March 2020 to pay 80 grand or anything less, because the dealers have to get rid of their stock quickly.
Quickly, because after over a decade on the European market, Nissan's luxury brand bids farewell to the old continent. Despite experiments with modern technologies like hybrids and variable compression ratio engines, Infiniti cars are mainly designed for markets where big cars and big engines are favored, and big cars with big engines usually do not conform with the European emissions standards. Big cars also usually don't sell very well in Europe because of how tiny Europe is. So Infiniti just could not justify maintaining a whole dealer network. And so, in the middle of March 2019, Infiniti decided to end sales in Europe. Bye-bye, Infiniti. And stop beeping at me.
Ich troll nicht, und wenn das Herz auch bricht, ewig verlorenes Lied.
Before we get to the main part of the review, a few words about what's happening to your Infiniti after 31st of March 2020. Your dealer should stand by service and warranty obligations. However, in due time, as these obligations expire, you may have to look for an alternative repair shop to maintain your car. In case of smaller models like the Q30 and QX30, that's pretty much a Mercedes. Bigger cars like the QX60 will probably be taken care of by mechanics specializing in US imports. And now get this. In a press release, Polish importer said, "Low sales volume and timeless design mean Infiniti cars may become collectibles in Europe."
I kid you not, this was in a press release sent out to the media in Poland. So take care of your Infiniti, because you may just have a future classic on your hands. Okay, I'll stop here for a moment and I'll tell you about the interior, and we'll save driving for later.
Instead of the cockpit, I'll start with the boot. Infiniti says the volume is 1,155 liters in 5-seat configuration and 447 liters in 7-seat configuration. This is floor to roof. Infiniti does not provide floor to window line volume. According to my measurements, it's around 550 and 250 liters, respectively. The lid, covering underfloor storage, does not shut close, but stays open until you push it shut. Very good. There are a couple of shopping bag hooks and a 12-volt socket. I have no clue what they were thinking with these seatbelt stops, but at least seats in the third row are super easy to unfold.
Seats in the third row are not only easy to unfold, but they're also easy to access. In many cars with the third row of seats, these sliding, folding second row seats are very difficult to get a hang of, especially with one hand. Usually you need two hands. Meanwhile, with one hand you're holding your one child, the other one you're stepping on its hood so it doesn't run away, the third one is on a leash somewhere. Standard procedure. You don't have two hands, but here, this is the hand that you're holding things with. You pull a lever and voila! And look at how big this opening is. Even if your kid only eats crisps for breakfast, lunch and dinner, he or she, or it, will still fit here easily. Okay, so as you can see, this part of the seat disappeared so that I can show you how much space there is and so that the camera can see me, and oh, plenty of space indeed. But now let's pretend I'm a kid and I'm folding the, well, actually unfolding, closing the back seat here, and kids can do it easily because kids can set VCRs. What's a VCR? Well, never mind. Kids can do things that adults can't. So anyway, I pull on this lever and I pull this seat. Come on. You can go further. See, that's what it is when you're an adult. You pull it like so. Okay, there we go. Lots of knee room. Now, the last American SUV I tested was the previous gen Mazda CX-9. It was brilliant and mainly unavailable in Europe, but I got my hands on one, and it also had a very spacious third row with easy access. And in the QX60 there is plenty of room in the third row, not just for teenagers but even for adults. And now, if you don't mind, I have to open this and leave. Not that I'm uncomfortable here, because I'm very comfortable here, but I have to record the next scene, which is in the second row. So can I stay? It's actually quite nice here. Okay, fine, I'll go. Bye. Have you noticed I had enough legroom in the back and I didn't even move the second row forward? Because you can. The seats are split 70-30 and they can be slid individually. So you can have like smaller kids here in the front and then bigger kids, or maybe your whatever, parents or something, in the back. Now, the only problem is that in the third row there is not even a 12-volt socket or a USB port. Now, there is a 12-volt socket down here, and it's right next to the AC 120-volt US socket. So I'm not surprised Infiniti is leaving Europe.
These screens in the front headrests can play content from USB, if there was a USB port in the back, DVD, or via cinch cables plugged into a tablet. No, that's pointless because tablets have bigger screens.
If not for the infotainment system in the back, so far you could assume this is a relatively modern car. However, from the driver's seat, there is no doubt this car was launched back in 2012, when it was still called the JX35. A year later, Infiniti revamped its model naming scheme, and all SUVs are now called QX something. Now, due to the positioning, 35 was promoted to 60. Yay!
More or less at the same time, first-generation Mazda CX-5 debuted and BMW X3 F25 was on the market for a year. Both cars had more modern interiors, especially in the infotainment department. The QX60 cockpit reminds me of other Infiniti and Nissan interiors from a decade ago. Despite the 2016 refresh, Infiniti did not add Q50's double display interface. Never mind that Infiniti sat-nav graphics look like an early computer game.
But let's call it simple elegance. Infiniti focused on what's important. There is buttons for the sat-nav, for your climate control, for the radio, driver aids. Now, there was a time when I was impressed with Infiniti Q50, but that's a more modern car than the QX60. Yes, there is lane assist, blind spot monitoring, adaptive cruise control, which by the way is too aggressive, and the 360-degree camera shuts off when it thinks I parked, not when I actually finished parking.
I like the seats are heated and ventilated. and there is even a heated steering wheel. The latter must have been added down the road because the button for it is somewhere around my left knee. Once you get your head between the steering wheel and the door, you'll see that there is a button with a plug on it. No, your QX60 is not a PHEV and it is not an electric car. Apparently, this is to start the power inverter should you have an adapter for the US plug.
On the plus side, the seats are comfortable and visibility is pretty good for this big a car. The suspension is okay on smaller bumps, but on larger potholes you feel that the QX, god, that naming scheme, QX60 weighs 2 tons and it's on big rims with relatively thin tires. The 262 horsepower 3.5-liter V6 pulls this designer barge with relative ease. If you picked a Volvo XC90 with a 2-liter with a 2-liter 250 horsepower engine, you would be slightly faster from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour, but this car feels a bit more flexible, especially when you're on the go. Maybe it's because the QX60 has a Cvt gearbox. Yes, CVT. Yes, in this car it actually makes sense, and no, you can't actually feel it's a CVT.
The QX60 has an intelligent all-wheel drive system. If the front wheels start slipping, torque is sent to the rear wheels. The car has almost 19 cm ground clearance and doors cover the sills, so you won't muddy your trousers. But I don't think anybody is going to take it off the beaten path. All-wheel drive is more to help on-road grip and stability of this SUV.
By the way, Infiniti QX60 has very SUV-like steering. Making a 90 degrees turn requires a full 360-degree spin of the wheel. Small roundabouts may be tricky because you have to make one turn and the other turn, and there is a lot of sort of spinning the wheel. Also, the car floats, which is great if your passengers fall asleep. Less so if they get motion sickness.
Fuel economy. In the city, I got close to Infiniti's claimed 14.4 liters per 100 kilometers, that's 16 mpg. I got just above 15 liters, which happens to be also 15 mpg. In combined cycle, I managed 12 or 20 mpg instead of the claimed 11 or 21 mpg. The fuel tank has 72 liters, so drive gently and you'll get decent range.
Besides the 360-degree camera and parking sensors, the other driver aids are at least a generation behind the competition, so you have to captain this ship with your own skills. At over 509 centimeters in length and 196 in width, without mirrors, Infiniti QX60 is over 30 centimeters longer than Hyundai Santa Fe, which can be felt in the third row and in the boot, even with the third row in place. It's 4 centimeters longer than Audi Q7, 14 centimeters longer than Volvo XC90. Hell, it's even 9 centimeters longer than the Range Rover. The Range Rover, not Sport, not the poor man's Range Rover, the Range Rover.
When I posted a picture of the QX60 on Instagram, only one person defended Infiniti as a brand, not this particular model. Infiniti design can be polarizing. In case of the QX60, I find the profile with the falling roofline problematic. Instead of adding lightness, it makes the car look like it was about to break under the weight of something in the boot. From other angles, it's not terrible, but let's face it, this car wasn't designed for Europe. There are a few examples still on sale in Poland and Ukraine, and a few dozen in Russia. And then there is Canada and the US.
The sticker price for this car in Poland was about 80,000 euro. It's now sold for 70 or less, as Infiniti announced it is leaving Europe. The QX60 is a good family car, but Europeans like their vans, which have just as much space inside, but they are more compact on the outside. On the other hand, if you have a big family and you're already making one mistake by buying an SUV instead of a van, make another mistake and buy an Infiniti QX60. And what do you think about Japanese SUVs made in USA? Is it something for you? Do you think cars designed in America work in Europe, or maybe you even own one? How is it to live with? Let me know in the comment section below. Subscribe, like and share. Join me for more reviews every Friday. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.